Don't Look Up comes from writer and director Adam McKay and the most star-studded cast of the year. But how was the film? Two low-level astronomers must go on a giant media tour to warn mankind of an approaching comet that will destroy planet Earth. This was one of my most anticipated films of the year. I love Adam McKay. He has made some of the most iconic comedies of our generation, but also The Big Short is one of my favorite films of all time. It's a perfect blend of comedy and drama, and that film is actually extremely frightening. And I also liked Vice a lot. I thought it was somewhat underrated. So when I heard he was making a political satire with this extremely large cast, this is the biggest cast of the year by far, I was so excited, and I couldn't help myself. I did something that I try not to do, is look at early reviews, or even reviews in general before I make my review. I don't like to look at a Rotten Tomato score or a Metacritic score to sway my opinion in a way. As much as people like to say it doesn't sway their opinion, sometimes it does, so I try and stay away from that. And for when I saw the early reviews of Don't Look Up, I was pretty disappointed. It looked pretty mixed. People really didn't know how to feel about the film, so my expectations were lowered a little bit. I saw the film last night, and I have a lot to say about it because I really enjoyed Don't Look Up. I think Adam McKay has made another clever film. This is a straight political satire, and I think he nailed it. Yes, you can tell that he's definitely leaning on one side from the other, and we never get political on this channel, but sometimes it's hard to stay away from that when you're talking about a film that has political satire, but you can easily tell that he sways to one side. I think the first half of the film, it is pretty subtle. He doesn't really sway to one side, and it's more poking fun at the politics of everything, how the media reacts to things, specifically with bad news, how we view which things are more important when this big horrible thing's about to happen. We tend to get wrapped up in other things like celebrities and their relationships, and also it shows how celebrities react to some of these big events as well. And I really thought this whole film was just clever, and I had fun with it. I'm not saying that some of these people who reviewed the movie and gave it a bad score missed the point, or calling them dumb or anything, because some people were just not going to like the movie, and that's totally fine. I guess what I'm trying to say is I was surprised by this low score because, political views aside, I thought this film was just interesting and somewhat fun. It had a good pace to it. It had good witty dialogue that you would expect from Adam McKay. The performances here are amazing. I mean, you're not surprised by that because when you look at the cast, your jaw just drops. It's insane how many people are in this cast. Leonardo DiCaprio and Jennifer Lawrence are the two main characters, and they nail it. Leonardo DiCaprio is this nervous guy with anxiety, this astronomer that lives a simple life. He's really interested in astronomy, and then he's thrown into this big situation where he has to go on media tours. He's got to warn the public of this thing, even though the government may be telling the people something differently, and he's got to go against that. Jennifer Lawrence's performance was great here too. She plays this astronomer at Michigan State that is trying to warn people, but sometimes she can come off as a little bit too loud, and it kind of sways people away, because when people hear bad news, they don't want to hear bad news. So she's kind of just telling it in their face, and she doesn't really care what you think. And I thought she was great at it. I can't go into every single performance because, like I said, there's so many people in it. I thought Jonah Hill was great. I thought Meryl Streep was great as the president. They play these exaggerated versions of people in real life. They never specifically say who it is, but there are people that can easily tie to who Adam McKay is clearly getting at. Like I said before, this whole film is a political satire about how the government and the media reacted to COVID-19, to the pandemic. And I know originally when Adam McKay made the script, it was supposed to be for climate change. And to no surprise, I'm pretty sure that's probably why Leonardo DiCaprio signed on for this film. Not saying he wouldn't if it wasn't, but I know he's a big advocate of climate change awareness. But you can tell throughout the film, there are things that feel directly pulled from real life on how people have reacted to the pandemic, and he made this satirical movie about how people reacted to this comet. And I think all that was really clever. Some of it's funny, but some of it's really scary. How the government reacts to things, how the media sways a narrative to things so that there's some sort of control on people. I think overall, it's just an interesting premise, an interesting film. But I get why maybe some people will be offended by this film. I said before that The first half of the film, they're a little bit subtle about who they're taking shots at, who they're making fun of in the government and the media. It's kind of on both sides. It's a little more subtle in that way. The second half, though, it is a clear nut shot to one side. I'm not going to say what. We don't get political on this channel. I could give a shit less. I really don't care. I'm just saying you can clearly tell in the second half of this film who Adam McKay is going after. So I guess I can understand why there are some negative reviews around this film. If it was a little bit more subtle in the second half, I think there would have been more positive reviews. But since it's so in your face, I can see why people are like, all right, this isn't for me. I personally didn't care. I thought it was pretty funny, but if I had to make some complaints about this film, that's definitely one of them. I wish he was subtle throughout the whole entire film. There's also some editing choices that are a little weird. He does this in his newer movies like The Big Short and Vice, where he cuts away at really abrupt moments. Sometimes it really works for an intense scene or comedic moment, but there are times where it's just sort of like unnecessary. And there's some jokes that don't land, obviously. And there are some plot points I feel like are just completely thrown out the window. They talk about something and it's never brought up again. I thought that was kind of jarring. But I'm curious to see how people are going to react to this film. It's probably going to be pretty polarizing. When I saw it in theaters last night, crowded theater, it seemed like everyone really enjoyed it. So, I guess we'll see. Don't Look Up was a clever political satire filled with many great performances because this is the biggest cast of the year by far. Overall, I had a good time with this film. It's another Adam McKay film where it's a comedy, but it's pretty serious, like The Big Short or Vice. And I thought it was paced pretty well, written really well. It was just an interesting film. Like I said before, this is a political satire about how we, the government, the media, react to really bad news. So this is a politically driven film. And anytime you make a politically driven film, you're going to divide some people. I'm never going to get political on this channel. I could give a shit less. But I'm just saying, I think the first half of the film, Adam McKay was pretty subtle about which side he was swaying on, where he was taking shots, all of that. But then the second half of the film was a clear punch in the dick to one side. I thought it was funny. I thought it worked well. But I guess I wish it was a little bit more subtle throughout the whole entire film. And I can clearly see why this film is getting mixed reactions now because of the second half of the film. With Adam McKay, you know there are going to be some funny moments, and there are. But also there are some serious and frightening moments as well. And I'll say this to wrap it all up. This film is going to divide people. It's going to be very polarizing because it takes such a political stance. And I will say this. Go into the film, all political bullshit aside, and I know it's going to be very hard because this is a political film. If you just do that, I think you'll enjoy it. Because I did. That's exactly what I did when I saw this. And I had a great time. That was a clever political satire and a clever twist on how we and the government and the media react to really bad news. If you go into this film with that mindset, I think you're going to have a good time. I'll give Don't Look Up 8.5 Davy Daves. Maybe because my expectations were lowered a little bit, I enjoyed this film more. But I don't know. I was never bored in this film. It always had my interest. So I'm really curious to see how people are going to react. I don't know how people have reacted so far with some of the early screenings. But I guess we'll see on Christmas when this comes out, and I definitely think you should watch it, and I'm really curious to hear what you guys think. And thank you so much for watching. Click here to see more of Dave's Takes.